generally speaking, the if-else statements. And then we also looked at the other example, or the other version of the if-else statement, the if, else if, else. Right? So I hope we all understand that, or how the if-else work. So in this particular session, we'll be looking at another type of conditional statement called the switch case default. Right? So that is similar in some ways to the if-else, and mostly you'd use that to make your coding or your code look elegant, because switch case is just an elegant form of the if-else. Right? So without wasting too much time, let's go into the code and then see. Let's go into code blocks and see what we'll be doing today. So today we'll be looking, as you said, the switch case default statement, and then we'll also look at how, or we'll compare it to the if-else and see when it is possible to use a switch case and when you should go for a conventional if-else. Agreed? Okay, so let's start. So you remember in the first or in the previous video, we made mention of the fact that conditional statements are used to take decisions. So depending on the outcome of a condition, it can either be true or false. Right? So the program goes in one direction if it is true, or it goes in another direction if it is false. And then the if else if was used when we have our conditions are more than two. So we use if, else ifs, and then finally an else. So the switch case default statement is similar to that, right? So let's just look at an example. So let's say I declare a variable called maybe let's call it var1. Agreed? And then I assign it a value of 100. So let's write an if-else statement to, and then see how to compare to the switch case. So if var1 equals 10, printf true, right? Else print false. Right, so we obviously know that because var1 is equal to 100, this condition is going to become false, and it is going to run the else block. Cool. Now let's see how we'd write this using a switch case default. Right. So mostly everything about if else also applies to the switch case. So using a switch case statement, or a switch case default statement, we would write it something like switch, right? So the condition also goes within the let's just say the parameter that you want to check is what goes into the parentheses here, right? So here we want to check var1. Agreed? So you can, the way it works is that it compares this to cases that will state over here, or in other words, you let's just write it and then you'd see what we are talking about. So if we wanted to write this if else using the switch case, we would write something like case 10, right? So print true, then default print false, right? So this is how the switch case statement works. So the if condition, we have the condition over here, but with the switch case we first have the parameter and the parenthesis of the switch statement. Then each of the cases are like saying if this parameter is equal to this value, then execute what is here, right? So let's comment the if statement out and run the switch case and see what we get. So if you look at the output, you can see that this is false. Agreed? So let's go to the code and then see why. So in essence, what happened in the switch statement was Sorry for that. What happened in, sorry for that, that was my phone ringing. What happens is that it is essentially checking the it is comparing the value of whatever you put in here to each of the cases, right? So let's say I wanted to write, let's go back to this if statement and say I wanted to do something like this. So let's say this is what we wanted to do. So we have var1 equal 10, var1 equals 20, and then if it doesn't match these two conditions, it goes to the else. So essentially what we are doing here is similar. So compare var1 to this particular case. If it's true, then do this statement, right? So if we wanted to do exactly what we had over there, we would have something like this. So you see what's going on here. So compare var1 to 10. If it matches this case, then perform whatever is in this case. If not, go and compare to case 20 and then put it or perform whatever is in the this particular block. But if it doesn't match any of the cases, then you will go to the default statement. So the default statement is sort of the else condition or the else part of the if else, right? So if it doesn't match any of the cases, then use the default statement, right? So if we run this, because var1 has a value of 100, it's not going to match this case, it's not going to match that case, but it's going to use the default statement. So that's the switch case, right? So using this, as I said, it makes the code look nicer in a way if you think about it, right? Because this is actually, if you look at the structure of this and you look at the structure of that, the switch case, well, in my opinion, it looks a bit cleaner than the other one. So now let's look at some when you can use a switch case and then when you can't use a switch case. So you can see that in a switch case, it only checks for equality. That is a crucial thing that you should know. Meaning you can only use a switch case if you want to perform the is equal to, right? This is the only time you can use a switch case. A switch case is not valid for if you want to do maybe less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, right? We don't use switch case default to do that. It is only used if you have an equality. So that means if I wanted to check if maybe the value of var1 is less than or is greater than 0 and is less than or equal to 10, if we wanted to do this, we cannot use a switch case. We would have to go for an if else. So that's one thing you should know. Switch case is only valid for is equal to, right? So it checks if var1 is equal to 10 or is equal to a case of 10. If we have a case where var1 is 10, then we do this. If we have a case where var1 is 20, we do this as well. And then if we don't match any of the cases, then we go to our default statement. Agreed? So that is that. So now let's also look at let's actually change the value of var1 to 10. So now what we are expecting is, because var1 has a value of 10, it is the same as this case, and hence it is going to print true and leave the other ones. So let's run it and see if that's what we actually get. Okay, so we can see that this is not what we were expecting. We were expecting it to just show us true and then end the program. But it has shown us true, it has shown us maybe true, it has also shown us false. Agreed? So if you go back to the code, you can see that true was for when it is equal to 10. may be true was when it's equal to 20, and then when it's not equal to any of them, we go to false. But it has actually printed out everything in that order. So let's also look at another. We'll come and see why that is so, but let's look at another case. So this time we are changing it to 20, right? So if we should run the program again, you can see that this time we are seeing only the block for 20 and then the block for the default. So I hope the problem is clear. This is not what we are supposed to see. We are supposed to see only may be true, because the value of var1, we gave it a value of 20 over here, right? So you can see that wherever it's like, whenever it is when it was case 10, it started from here and printed this and also printed this. But when it was a value of 20, it just printed this and then printed that, right? So this is a fundamental problem of switch case, right? We call it the fall through or the fall through, if you want to, yes, through, yeah, problem of switch case, right? So falling through means that if when it was 10, right, it will print out the value of 10, fine, but it then falls through all the other cases below it until it gets to the default, right? So to fix this issue, anytime you are using the switch case, after you are done with whatever you want to do in the block, you have to put a break statement there. So this break statement prevents the fall through problem. So I'm going to copy it and then put it here as well. So that means if it is 10 and you print out true, break away from this switch case and then continue the rest of the program. Likewise, if var1 is equal to 20, print out may be true and then break away. So if you don't break away, you would get this fall through problem. Now it's not always a problem, right? Because let's say I wanted to do the same thing. Let's go back to the if statement and see why it might not be a problem. So now let's say I wanted to print may be true if var1 is equal to 20 or var1 equals 30. Let's say this is what we wanted to do using the switch case, right? So I'll comment this out again. So in this case, since I want the same thing to happen for case 20 and case 30, I would simply write something like this, right? So you can see that for case 20, it is just going to fall through to what 30 does and then break. If it is 30 as well, it is going to do the same thing and then break. So if you want multiple cases to share the same statements, right, you can omit the break statement so that it actually falls through and then print that. I hope that is clear. Right. Okay, so now let us run the program again. So we've set let's start again. Let's start from 10. So now what we are expecting is that it just prints true and then it's done. So running this program again, so now you can see that we actually have what we wanted. It's just true and then it is done. It doesn't print the maybe true or the false. Okay, awesome. Let's also go and change the value of var1 to 20 and then see what happens. So we change it to 20, right? So we said when the value is 20, it is going to execute this case. But what happens is that because there's no statement there and there's also no break statement there, it is going to fall through to case 30 and then print out may be true as well. Agreed? So running this program, we can see that the output is or maybe true, exactly what we expected, because it fell through case 20 and then went to case 30. Now let's also change the value of var1 to 30. So again, we're also expecting to see maybe true. Agreed? So running this as well, we can see that yes, it's maybe true. So if it doesn't match any of the cases, then it is going to use the default statement, right? So let's change this to a value of 300. So 300 does not match this case, it doesn't match this case, it doesn't match that case. So it is going to use the default statement. Okay. So if we should run this and go to our output, you can see that yes, it's actually running the default statement, which just prints false. Okay, so I hope the switch case makes sense. It's just a more elegant way of writing the if else. If only you are using the is equal to. It doesn't work for ranges or where you'd have less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, right? Okay. And you've also seen the for through problem of switch case and how to prevent it. Awesome. So now let's, like the previous video, right? Let's take an example to demonstrate a useful case of this. Okay, so again, I'm using the C programming, a modern approach PDF book. So if you get it, we on the question is on page 89. So now it says we have a legal document, right? This way, normally it's written as dated this. So over here we'll put the day. So if today is, let's say, 22nd, we'll put the 22 ND off, then we put the month over here, and then finally the year, right? So we want the program to take the input as month slash day slash year, and then format it in this output for us. So I hope the question makes sense. So we enter the date numerically, and then it prints it to us in sort of a statement form. Okay, so let's head over to our code blocks and then actually write this program. So I'll comment the switch case out, and then we'll use this. So let's go back to the question and then do a little analysis. So we can see that in the question, if we put in a day of 19, we are supposed to attach the suffix or the th to it, so 19th of July, right? So if we input a day like 1, it's going to be the first, so the suffix will be st, right? So basically, if the day ends with 1, that means we are going to use the st suffix. If the day ends with 2, we are going to use the nd suffix. If the day ends with 3, we are going to use the rd suffix. So for any other day, we'll just use the th suffix. I hope that makes sense. And then the same thing goes for the date, the month as well. If I enter a month of 1, that is equal to January, 2 is equal to February, and so on and so forth. So 12 will be equal to December, right? And then for the date or for the year, I just attach the 20 as a prefix to it. So I hope that makes sense. So let's actually start this program. So I'll need variables to store the values that will be taken from the user, right? So since we are working with dates, I would go for integers. So let's say we declare day, we declare month, and then we also declare year as well, right? Okay. So we will just print a statement to the user. So enter date. So we'll give you the format as mm/dd/yy, which is what we had from our program. Okay. So in our scanf statement, we are going to use the multiple form or the scanf to take multiple inputs. You can also do it one scanf at a time, but that is just extra code. So over here, we know that we are expecting a day, right? So we are expecting a month with a /, another month with a /. So and we are expecting a month here, /, a day, / then the year as well. right? So we'll store it in variables month, day, and then year, right? Okay, so after we are done with that, we need to actually print out the, or we need to first of all compute the suffixes for the day, for the day. So if it is ending in 1, it is an st suffix. If it's ending in 2, it's an nd, and if it's ending in 3, it's an rd. So any other thing will be a th. And then for the month as well, we need to print the we need to print the actual month. So we need to compare if the number of the month we've entered is 1, then we'll print out January, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we'll start with so we'll put the initial printf statement there, which is so printf. So according to the question, is dated this. Yeah, so because I've not brought the \n, anything else I print will be on that same line. Okay, so let's work on the day suffix or suffixes. Yeah, so the parameter I want to check is the day, right? So we'll use this. So I want to compare, or you need to check if the day ends in a particular number, right? So I want basically since I want the last number, I want the remainder if I divide the day by 10. And for that, we use the modulus operator from our arithmetic operations video. Okay, so we need to check this day modulus 10. I'm checking what these values can be. So if we have a case of 1, right, that means we are going to print something of this sort. So percentage d st, and then we put our break statement over there to prevent the fall through problem, right? So if day modulus 10, so let's say I input a day like 11 modulus 10 gives us 1. So if it is 1, you print out first of all the day, and then you add the st suffix to it. That's basically what we are doing. So I'll do the same thing for 2. So with 2 would have the nd suffix as well, right? Now we'll put our break statement there. So we'll do the same thing for 3. So with 3 we would have our rd suffix, so like third. And then finally, if it is any other thing, we would use the default statement, which has, or the suffix in that case would be st. So here will just be default. I hope it makes sense. So if it prints this as first, dated this, and then we check the value of day modulo 10. So if I enter a value like 1 modulo 10 is 1, so it will come here and print out first of all the day and then the st suffix. If day modulo 10 is 2, it's going to print out the day and the nd suffix. If it's 3, it's going to use the rd suffix, and so on and so forth. So I hope this makes sense. Oh yes, and we don't use the ampersand when we are doing the printf statement, right? Okay, so let's actually run this and see whether what we have is working so far. So I'm going to enter a month of say 7, a day of 21, and then say 2018 or 2017. So if you press enter, so you can see that our day is actually 21st, because 21 modulo 10 is 1, and then in the case 1 we told it to print the st suffix. Cool. So let's also run this program and use a day like 2018 22, right? So we would have let's say 7/22/2018. Cool. So you can see that we are using the nd suffix as well. Okay, awesome. So let's continue. Okay, so we can see that this is working the way we want it to. So let's continue with the month, right? So month, the names. Let's just use month names. Okay, so with this one we also want to switch the month, right? So you want to check from values 1 to 12, right? So this one, those are the only values that we have. So we can check from 1 to 11, and then if they don't match that, we simply print out December, right? Okay, so I'm just going to add the day here so that we have it as it says in the question actually. Okay, so we are switching the month, right? So we first of all check the case of 1. So if the case is 1, that means we would have so printf January, right? So we understand this. So 1 is January, 2 is February, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so let's do that as well. So case 3 is March. So I'll copy and paste all these 3 again. So we would have case 4, 5, and 6. So you mustn't have 2 cases having the same value, else you'll get a compilation error. So this will be April, this will be May, this will be June, right? And then I would copy these ones as well. So we'd have 7, 8, 9, we have 10 here, and then finally we have 11. So we'll just change the months accordingly. So we'd have July here, August, we would have September, we would have October here, and then finally November, right? So if it doesn't match any of these 11 cases, then we can go to a default and print out the December basically, right? So we've seen what is going on here. So if it is I'll also put a space over here. So depending on the value of the month, it will print out the appropriate month as well, right? So let's run this and then see what we'd get. So going to the output screen. So let's type in a month like 7/22/2018. Cool. So you can see dated this 22nd day. So I think we'll have to put an off statement here. But you can see that the month is actually printing out. 7 is actually for July, right? So I'll run this program again, and then we'll do, let's say 2/28/2018. Oh, okay, interesting. So we can see that we have an issue for this side. 28 is supposed to be th, not st, but still the month is printing out okay. So we'll go and fix that, and then we'll come back and then view the output. Okay, yeah, so it's here. I actually forgot to change this to th. So th over here, right? So that makes sense. So day of. So I hope we understand what we are doing. We've simply broken the program down into the days and months because those are the ones we need to check. So for the day, we just check if the modulus of 10 equals to 1. That means the day actually ends with 1. Then we use the ST. If it's 2, we use the ND. If it's 3, we use the RD. So any other thing, we would use the TH, right? And then we've also done the same for the month as well. So after we are done with this, we can finally print out the year part. So we would have maybe 21st January. Let's put a comma there. So we have the first 20, and then so with this one we would also have to check if the digits, or if the number of digits, let's say we type in 2007, right? The computer does not, if you are storing a number of 7, it stores it at 7. It doesn't do 07. So over here we need to check if we have 1 or 2 digits, and then we know what to print, right? Okay. So if, let's say, so for this one we'll just use an if statement. So if my year, right, divided by 10. So because we are using integer division, I know that I'm just going to get the whole number part. So if I enter a year like say 07, 07 is going to be stored as just 7. So 7 divided by 10 with integer operation is a value of 0. So you understand what we are doing there. So if this is equal to a value of 0, that means it's just a 1-digit year. So in that case, print out 3 of this, and then finally percentage D. So we would print out the year, right? But if it is not, if the year divided by 10 is not equal to 0, then that means we have a 2 or more digit year. So in that case, sorry, this would be year. So in that case, we would have just one of the zeros. Let me read. Okay, so we've seen how this program works. So let's finally run this as well, and then see it working for the whole day, or the whole date, sorry. So we'll start with what we had in the question, which was 7/19/14. So if you press enter, so you can see that yes, we have the 19th day of July 2014. So because we had a 2-digit here, it only printed 20 and then added the 14 to it. Cool. So let's try it also for a 1-digit year. So we would have, let's say, I don't know, 13th of, say, 12 slash, let's say, 09 or 08. So if you press enter, you can see that we have the, so I just have to go and fix the suffixes. I think I left, I mixed them when I was putting it. So we would have to check, you know, we'd see what we'll do. So if the date is 6, so this should have just been 12. So it's actually if the date is, how do you call it? So this suffixes also don't work if the day, or if the, the month is in the value of 10. It only start working from 20 going up. So we'd have 21st, 31st, or 42nd, but we can't have 11th. It's 11th. But you can see that the date, the month, and the year are printing out. Okay, right. So let's just make that change, and then we will be done with the program. Okay. So let's see how to do that. So we can put an if statement here, right? So if the day is greater than or equal to so we need to check if it is in 3 ranges. First of all, 1 to 10. We need to check 10 to 19, and then 20 and above, right? So the suffixes will work for the 1 to 10, and then from 20 and above, but they won't work if it is 10 to 19. if it's 10 to 19, we always use the th, so we have 11th, 12th, 13th, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to check if the day is greater than or equal to 10 and the day is less than 20, right? We will just print the th version of the day like this, right? So if it is not in that range, that means we can put our switch case statement over here as well, right? So that's the idea of programming. It's not necessarily learning that this is a switch case, but it's learning how to manipulate all the things you've learned to write a functioning program. Agreed? So that means if our day is in the range of 10 to 20, sorry, it is going to just print using the th suffix, but if not, it is then going to use this switch statement we have over here, right? So let's run this and then use the day that we entered previously. So we would have, let's say 13, so yeah, 13th or 12, 8, or 8. So we press enter now, we can see that we now have the th here, right? So let's run this program and use a value of 22 for the day. So with the month we would have 12, with the day we'll have 22, and then with the year we'll have maybe 13. So you can see that 22 now uses the ND, and then we have the correct day. Okay, so we've gone through how to use the switch, or we've gone through using the switch case default statement. So sorry. We've also seen how it's comparable to the if else. You can only use the switch case if you are using the is equal to part, right? And then we've also looked at the for through statement and how to prevent it using the break statement, and then finally went through an example, right? So all this is very cool. So I'd suggest you actually take the time to practice at least this particular example, because we went through so many things in it. So you can rewatch the video and then go through this example, right? So switch case is the second part of conditional statement that we've done today. So at least now you should have a grasp on the whole aspect of conditional statements, right? So in the next video we would look at something called iteration, or in other words repetition, how to perform the same code for a number of times without actually retyping it. But I would suggest you take time to go through this video. You need to practice the example, right? Well, the examples, or you need to look for examples and then practice to make sure that you understand how to manipulate all the things you've learned so far and then write a functioning program. Okay, so that is that for this video. So practice. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment box and I'll do well to respond to each and every one of you. So until the next video, happy programming.